Welcome back to our channel on this beautiful, reflective day. We are thrilled to have you join us as we dive deep into the intricate, often frustrating world of daytime drama scheduling and narrative momentum. Your continued support means everything to us as we unpack the latest developments and explore the intense emotional landscapes of our favorite characters. The sudden cessation of a daily narrative creates a profound psychological void, a jarring disruption that resonates deeply within the dedicated viewer. When the announcement materialized that Beyond the Gates would plunge into an unexpected hiatus, suspending all new broadcasts for the entire week spanning June 29th to July 3rd, a palpable wave of frustration cascaded through the loyal audience. This was not merely a pause, it felt like a sudden, unprovoked severing of a vital emotional lifeline. The decision to air recycled, older episodes in place of fresh, pulsating drama acted as a bucket of ice water thrown over a roaring fire. Viewers who had meticulously carved out a sacred portion of their daily existence to immerse themselves in the unfolding tragedies and triumphs of this fictional universe were left staring at a screen that offered only echoes of the past. The anger that immediately began to simmer was not born of entitlement, but of a deep-seated emotional investment that had been abruptly and unceremoniously disregarded. In the relentless, demanding ecosystem of daytime television, momentum is the absolute lifeblood of the narrative. It is a delicate, hard-won commodity, constructed meticulously day by day, scene by scene, until the tension reaches a fever pitch. For a show that was just beginning to find its footing, generating genuine heat and magnetic pull, this interruption was perceived as a catastrophic miscalculation. The audience had surrendered themselves to the rhythm of the storytelling, allowing the daily drip of intrigue to dictate their emotional temperature. To shatter that rhythm precisely when the narrative engine was finally roaring at maximum capacity felt like a profound betrayal of the unwritten contract between the creators and the consumers. The fear instantly took root that this hard-earned momentum, once lost, might be impossible to fully recapture, leaving the show to languish in a state of terminal stagnation. Beneath the surface of this passionate fan outcry lies the cold, uncompromising machinery of television production. While the audience experiences the show as a continuous, living entity, the reality of creating such a sprawling saga involves grueling schedules, complex logistical hurdles, and the constant, looming threat of production bottlenecks. There exists no concrete evidence to suggest that this hiatus was born of backstage turmoil, creative collapse, or interpersonal drama among the cast. Rather, the bitter pill to swallow is that this was almost certainly a sterile, calculated technical maneuver. It was a preemptive strike designed to allow the exhausted production crew to catch their collective breath, to ensure the long-term sustainability of the shooting schedule, and to meticulously balance the required episode counts for the network's overarching calendar. Yet, knowing this logical truth does absolutely nothing to soothe the visceral sting of the narrative interruption. The true tragedy of this scheduling anomaly lies in the agonizing state of suspended animation forced upon the residents of Fairmont Crest. This sprawling, opulent setting had recently transformed into a suffocating pressure cooker of ambition, deceit, and simmering resentments. The architecture of the estate itself seemed to loom over the characters, casting long, dark shadows that mirrored their increasingly compromised moral compasses. The air within those walls was thick with unspoken threats and the metallic tang of impending ruin. To freeze the action in this precise location, at this precise moment, is akin to pausing a symphony just before the crashing crescendo. The audience is left trapped in the unbearable silence of the intake of breath, denied the cathartic release of the inevitable explosion. Consider the agonizing purgatory in which Bill currently resides. He has been systematically backed into a corner of his own meticulous design, trapped by a labyrinthine web of half-truths and devastating compromises. His internal conflict is a raging inferno, burning away his former certainties and leaving only raw, desperate panic. Every decision he has made in recent weeks has only tightened the noose around his neck, alienating his few remaining allies and exposing him to catastrophic vulnerabilities. He stands on the precipice of total personal and professional annihilation. his mind frantically calculating impossible escape routes while his heart hardens against the inevitable betrayals he must commit to survive. The hiatus leaves him frozen on this terrifying ledge, his agonizing realization of his own impending doom stretched out into an excruciating eternity for the viewers. Haley's trajectory is equally steeped in profound psychological torment. She is a woman drowning in a sea of toxic revelations, her foundational truths shattered by the very people she trusted most implicitly. The betrayal she has endured cuts to the absolute core of her identity, forcing her into a desperate, defensive posture where every instinct screams for vengeance. Yet her inherent morality demands restraint. She is paralyzed by the agonizing weight of a truly impossible decision, torn between detonating a truth that will destroy her family or swallowing a lie that will slowly poison her soul. The internal war raging within her is palpable, her every glance laden with inch tears and hardening resolve. By halting the narrative now, the network has trapped Haley in the most painful moment of her existence, forcing the audience to sit helplessly with her suffocating grief and mounting righteous fury. The interruption also brutally stifles the explosive potential of Shanice's simmering, righteous rage. She has been pushed far beyond the boundaries of reasonable endurance, subjected to systemic indignities and calculated manipulations that have finally ignited a terrifying fire within her. Her motivations have crystallized from a desire for simple justice into a cold, hard demand for absolute retribution. She is meticulously gathering her ammunition, studying the weaknesses of her oppressors at Fairmont Crest with the predatory patience of a hunter. The internal conflict she faces is the terrifying realization of what she is willing to become in order to tear down the corrupt structures around her. The hiatus pauses her right at the moment her finger begins to tighten on the metaphorical trigger, denying the audience the dark, thrilling satisfaction of witnessing her unleash her carefully orchestrated devastation. At the apex of this tangled hierarchy, Diana finds her meticulously constructed empire beginning to crumble from within. Her usual calculated coldness is failing to mask a deep, terrifying vulnerability. She is consumed by a suffocating paranoia, acutely aware that a devastating betrayal is germinating among her closest confidants. The power plays she usually executes with flawless precision are becoming frantic and erratic, driven by the terrifying realization that she is losing her iron grip on Fairmont Crest. She is a monarch watching the torches of rebellion gather at her gates, forced into making increasingly ruthless, morally bankrupt decisions to maintain her precarious throne. The pause in broadcasting leaves her trapped in this state of agonizing anticipation, her eyes darting at shadows, her mind racing with paranoid calculations that the audience is desperate to see play out. What transforms this scheduling necessity into a profound source of audience fury is the baffling, almost insulting nature of the final episode broadcast before the dark week. In the grand tradition of daytime drama, a planned interruption of this magnitude absolutely demands a shattering, earth-moving cliffhanger. It requires a revelation so shocking, a confrontation so violent, or a betrayal so profound that the audience is left gasping for air, their desperation for the next episode sustaining them through the long, barren days of the hiatus. Instead, the narrative delivered a shockingly tepid, profoundly gentle conclusion. The simmering tensions were allowed to simply fizzle out into mundane interactions, completely devoid of the required dramatic punctuation. This catastrophic failure of narrative execution shifted the audience's focus entirely, because the fictional narrative failed to provide a focal point for their emotional energy. The audience's righteous anger immediately pivoted away from the treacherous characters and locked directly onto the decision-makers at CBS. The lack of a compelling on-screen crisis meant that the only crisis worth discussing was the perceived incompetence of the scheduling strategy. The digital landscape, usually a vibrant forum for debating character motivations and entangling complex plot webs, instantly morphed into a toxic battlefield of frustration and cynical condemnation. The debate was no longer about whether Bill would survive his impending ruin or if Diana would uncover the traitor. It was a loud, collective demand to know why a network would deliberately sabotage its own rising momentum with such a bafflingly anticlimactic pause. This intense backlash places an almost insurmountable burden of expectation upon the writers and producers when the fresh episodes finally resume. A standard, table-setting episode will absolutely not suffice to quell the lingering resentment. The creative team must return with a narrative explosion of unprecedented magnitude. They are tasked with instantly reigniting a flame that was carelessly allowed to be extinguished. The returning episodes must be immediately saturated with shocking twists, devastating confrontations, and the immediate, visceral payoff of the storylines that were so unceremoniously stalled. They must prove, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that the wait was justified by delivering a level of dramatic intensity that forcefully drags the audience back into the obsessive grip of the Fairmont Crest saga. While a singular week of reruns is highly unlikely to cause the total collapse of a legacy daytime drama or permanently alienate its most fiercely loyal core viewership, the subtle, insidious damage to the show's cultural footprint cannot be ignored. The vibrant, daily hum of social media engagement, the passionate water-cooler discussions, and the essential feeling of being part of a shared, ongoing cultural event have been severely dampened. Trust is a remarkably fragile commodity in the relationship between a daily serial and its audience. When the implicit promise of continuous, escalating drama is broken, a seed of doubt is planted. The viewers begin to question whether their intense emotional investment is truly respected by the guardians of the narrative, creating a subtle emotional distance that can be incredibly difficult to bridge. The psychological toll on the dedicated viewer during this forced absence cannot be overstated. For those who utilize the daily drama of Fairmont Crest as a necessary cathartic release from their own complex lives, the sudden silence is deafening. They are left to endlessly ruminate on the unresolved betrayals, their imaginations forced to work overtime to fill the void left by the absent broadcasts. Every day that passes without a resolution to Bill's desperate machinations or Haley's crushing grief builds a reservoir of anxious energy. This pent-up anticipation is a double-edged sword for the network. It guarantees a massive audience for the return, but it also ensures that this audience will be in an incredibly unforgiving, hypercritical state of mind. The viewers are no longer just passive consumers. They are emotionally exhausted participants demanding a spectacular return on their suspended investment. Ultimately, the true failure lies not in the mechanical necessity of airing archival episodes, but in the glaring lack of strategic foresight regarding the precise timing and execution of that pause. If the upcoming chapters manage to detonate with sufficient force, weaving a tapestry of betrayal and conflict so compelling that it obliterates the memory of this frustrating hiatus, then this dark week will be relegated to a mere footnote in the show's history. However, if the narrative struggles to regain its footing, if the characters remain mired in sluggish, uninspired conflicts upon their return, this scheduling decision will inevitably be weaponized by critics and fans alike. It will be forever etched in the annals of CBS history not just as a minor logistical necessity, but as a monumental, self-inflicted wound. A catastrophic strategic blunder that fatally derailed the momentum of Beyond the Gates right at the crucial moment it was poised for absolute greatness.